Tzeentch have seen some love since I made their guide way back in the Realms of Chaos. They've got all kinds of tomfoolery with the changing of the ways, cults, and two lords with drastically different playstyles. So let's take a look at how to play Tzeentch in 2025. Let's start by going through their racial mechanics. First up, grimoires and the changing of the ways. Grimoires are their unique currency that's used for multiple different purposes, such as the changing of the ways and certain research projects. They're also earned through a number of methods, such as character skills, post-battle loot, and certain buildings. The main way that you're going to spend them is, of course, the changing of the ways. This is a collection of different abilities that can be used to alter the campaign map for both your faction and others. You start the campaign with the transfer settlement option, but the rest have to be unlocked in the tech tree at the cost of more grimoires. Once unlocked, you can use all of them from this menu as long as you have the grimoires to pay for them. With these abilities, you can reset the movement range of one of your armies, allowing a massive amount of ground to be covered in a single turn, remove the fog of war from a target faction's territory for 5 turns, giving you a full view of what's going on in their lands, which is very useful when invading, view a target army's line of sight for 5 turns, which is similar to the last one, but is more useful for keeping an eye on a specific enemy army. Forced Rebellion does what it says in the tin, and can be useful for softening up a target settlements for further assaults once the rebellion has done its job. Halt Army prevents a target army from moving for a turn, which has a large number of uses for pinning someone down so you can more easily take them out, slow their advance to give you time to prepare, or simply disrupt a faction's plans. Open Gates is another one that's pretty self-explanatory. If you battle a walled settlement anytime in the next 5 turns, the gates will be open, so you can enter the settlement much easier as long as the AI doesn't decide to use the ladders anyway, which they probably will. Break Alliance is again pretty obvious and can be useful when you want to attack one faction without pulling someone else into the fight. Force Peace again does what it says in the tin and can be useful for getting out of a war you can't win. Transfer Settlement can only be used between factions which are not at war, so it's a great way to gain territory without battling, but obviously the owner doesn't take too kindly to this. And Force War forces war. With the anti-player bias, it's not amazing, but it can distract enemy factions and make your job a little easier if they're getting attacked on both sides. Each of these has their own individual cooldowns, so you can use them all at once if you really want to, provided you have the grimoires to pay for them. Most of the costs are also variable depending on the targets, so it never hurts to have too many in stock. Next, cults. These are essentially under-settlements that appear in regions covered in Tzeentch corruption. Once they form, much like regular settlements, they have a number of options for what you can build inside of them. I won't go through each building since that'd be a lot of reading and numbers, but essentially it's ways to earn grimoires and or buff your armies and heroes in the area. Personally, if it's in an area I likely won't be in for a long time, I stick with the branching plans since it's steady grimoires and has a chance to spread to nearby settlements for more. There are other options which destroy the cult upon completion, but come with powerful one-time bonuses such as a big hit of grimoires, teleporting your faction leader, or creating a hero capable of creating a new cult, but these are more situational than something to be used all the time. All of these buildings also affect the discoverability meter, and all this means is the higher it goes, the easier the cult will be to discover and destroy. Aim to keep this as low as you can if you want the cults to stick around, but that said, there's no buildings to reduce it, so don't feel any need to fill all of their slots. The bottom line as far as I'm concerned is cults are generally a good way to earn extra grimoires and occasionally do some other cool stuff if you happen to be in the area or want to be. I wouldn't prioritize them over your other settlements, but if you can afford to build them up, you might as well for the added value that they bring. Like many factions, Tzeentch has access to the Unholy Manifestations, which are a collection of abilities they can use on the campaign map. That said, at the moment, just Kairos can make use of these. The first one you get for free, and then the other 3 are unlocked when the total Tzeentch corruption on the entire map reaches a certain level. This does mean it's a little out of your control when you unlock these, so just do your part and they should be yours in no time. The abilities allow you to increase your grimoires per turn at the cost of draining the magic reserve of a target army. Once the duration is up, you gain a buff to grimoires post-battle, so this is a fantastic option for farming a whole bunch. Enable attrition for a target enemy army, no matter where they are, which is great for weakening a target. Increase the barrier, ammo, and range of an army, which is fantastic for increasing its power, especially if you have a lot of ranged units. And massively increase the Winds of Magic reserves and Tzeentch corruption in a local province where you have an army, whilst plummeting the enemy control at the cost of that army's movement for 3 turns. This one is great for preparing a province for invasion by making it nearly impossible for a non-Tzeentch faction to live there. They also make use of their own flavour of corruption, and this is spread through the usual methods of buildings, commandments, and certain lord and hero skills. Low levels cause them to take attrition, and high levels bring a whole bunch of bonuses. First of all, attrition for all non-chaos armies, then an extra chance for demonic units to come back when destroyed in battle, and more HP when they do, more control, more chance of the Winds of Magic increasing in strength, more ammo for all Tzeentch units, and of course, makes it harder for other corruption to take hold. If Tzeentch's corruption is the dominant kind map-wide, the Unholy Manifestations receive buffs to their effects. You get more grimoires at the end of the duration instead of post-battle loot, the attrition is increased, the effects are all increased, and the corruption is increased. Lastly, for their commandments, Foster Cults is useful when spreading your corruption to that and nearby provinces to make them easier to control or invade. Mutilith Prison Formulae is great in regions where you're making lots of grimoires to make even more. The Architect's Theorem is useful for maintaining control of regions and slowing invading armies. And Egrim's Contrivance Algorithm is useful for slowing plague spreading and increasing research speed and the winds of magic in the region. Weirdly, they have no options for income or recruitment or growth, so a little harder to make use of that much frequently. Now we come to the individual factions. First up are the Oracles of Tzeentch, led by Kairos Fateweaver. His unique mechanic is the Winds of Magic Manipulation. This one is dead simple. You can click the button to zoom out and look at the map, split up into provinces. Any province you own a single settlement in, you can increase or decrease the levels of Winds of Magic, all the way from Calm to Tempestuous. There's only a limited number of winds on the map at any one time, so you have to funnel them from one area to another, rather than just setting everything to the max. Not only is this useful for getting your armies more winds to use in battle, your regions will gain various bonuses for being at high winds, empowering your settlements. Alongside this, Kairos has an eclectic collection of faction effects. He increases the experience gain of all lords and success chance of all heroes, making for some very powerful characters in the faction. He also reduces the construction time of all buildings, allowing him to grow his settlements extremely quickly, so long as he can afford it. And all reinforcing armies arrive in half the time, allowing him to use numbers to his advantage far easier in battle. Kairos himself can also make use of the Fragments of Sorcery, and this is really just for him, but as he levels up, he automatically unlocks skills in the Fate is Mine to command line. Each of these new skills unlocks a new slot in the Fragments of Sorcery menu. From here, he can swap out spells for each slot on his spell wheel and build out Kairos just how you want him. There are spells from Metal, Life, Heavens, Light, Shadows, Beasts, Death, and Fire, so you have a massive number of spells to choose from. There's no cooldown or cost to this, so simply swap out spells as and when you need them, depending on who you're going to be battling. For his army to complement all that, he also comes with reduced cooldown for all spells, allowing him to sling a lot of magical power onto the battlefield, provided he has the winds. His army is also a lot harder to sneak up on with increased defense against ambushes and hero actions, and all units fighting alongside him gain a much shorter wait until their barrier starts to regen, making his army very difficult to get rid of. The update has helped Kairos a little, but he still has quite a challenging start to the campaign. The southwestern Chaos Waste turned into a little bit of a brawl with the starting war to the east, followed by another potential war with Slaanesh, Oxyotl sneaking his way over to you from the west, and Teclis to the north. Once all of them are taken care of, you can really start playing, and by that I mean attack the Lizardmen, because those victory conditions are kinda whack. Mechanically, you want to funnel wins either where you're battling or where your most powerful provinces are, depending on what you're focusing on at the time. Just be aware that enemies will get just as much added magic reserves, so expect fairly action-packed battles if you're against another mage. Swap out Kairos' spells whenever you can for any advantage you can get, and aside from that, use cults to farm grimoires and spam the Changing of the Ways whenever you can to get an advantage, because this campaign can be very tricky. We also have the Deceivers, led by the Changeling. Unlike most factions, the Changeling doesn't occupy settlements or have a horde. Instead, the faction relies entirely on trickster cults, and these are essentially under-settlements similar to the regular cults. However, these trickster cults have a much larger number of buildings they can make use of. First of all, they can make use of both basic and advanced military, allowing them use of the entire roster. Then you have the symbiotic and parasitic buildings. Everything here not only costs gold, but cult supplies. These are gained by completing schemes and certain cult buildings. With the exception of the loot building in the parasitic tree, all buildings here are mirrored and cannot be duplicated. For instance, the symbiotic income building, Disguised Trade, prevents you from building the parasitic Raider's Bounty. Symbiotic buildings focus on working alongside the host settlement and enhancing its power, either to ally with the owner or to benefit yourself by leeching. Parasitic is the opposite and harms the host settlement whilst benefiting yourself more directly. Which to focus on depends on the settlement and who owns it, but to keep things simple, if you're under either an allied or very lucrative settlement, then probably focus on symbiotic to keep them happy and benefit both of you. If it's an enemy settlement and it's not very lucrative, parasitic is the way to go. You also have to manage discoverability, and symbiotic generally reduces it and parasitic increases. If you just aim to keep discoverability low, say below 50, then you can really build whatever you want, and I promise it's not as complicated as it seems. Whenever you win a battle against a settlement, you can choose to form a symbiotic or parasitic cult. You can also form cults with special trickster cultists, and these also have the military option, but otherwise work the exact same. All this affects is the first building that appears when the cult is founded, so don't worry about locking yourself into a set role. You can even swap to the equivalent building of the opposite type from the build menu, so they're extremely easy to respec. These cults also allow you to move unseen through the local region, so you are quite literally unspottable if you have one of these near your armies. The faction also has a list of schemes, and this is essentially a list of missions to complete over the course of the campaign, and they're split up into different theatres, which are essentially areas of the map. These missions are often fairly generic things like eliminating a certain faction, targeting a settlement with a specific cult building, or battling against a certain race. Each one of these missions comes with their own permanent rewards, so you can quickly stack up a pretty crazy number of bonuses once missions are completed. Once 3 are complete in one theatre, you'll unlock the ability to attempt the theatre's Grand Scheme battle. Once completed, these not only make the final battle for the faction much easier, they also provide permanent items and bonuses and send that region of the map into chaos. In theory. They also provide you with 1 Trickster Rift capacity, which allows you to build a rift in the world, allowing instant teleportation between all others, essentially allowing you to get around the map much faster. Once you've completed 5 schemes, you have the option to start the ultimate scheme, and this is really just a big final battle, where the Empire is reinforced by any factions you didn't remove with the schemes, and you are reinforced by any you unlocked. It all seems really complicated, but it's really quite simple. Just find missions that you can complete in that region, and get to work. Rinse and repeat a whole bunch of times, and you have yourself a campaign. Lastly, the faction is also immune to all trespassing penalties and can replenish and recruit in foreign territory. Doesn't really bring any bonuses to his army, but the Changeling himself is able to shapeshift. If you either beat a legendary character in battle or enter into an alliance with their faction, you'll be able to choose that lord as your form in battle. When the battle starts, you'll have the Changeling, but have the option to transform into your target with the Formless Horror ability. This carries over their stats along with any spells or abilities, so you pretty much turn into the final form of your target, which is pretty crazy. You can swap back and forth as many times as you want, so can go for the right form for what you need at the time. It's super simple and can be a lot of fun, so be sure to choose someone that will work well with your army and you'll have a great time. The Changeling really does play like no one else. Instead of conquest, you want to focus on these scheme missions and progress your campaign forward. I'd set up a good base of income for both gold and cult supplies in the Empire before heading out to complete missions and schemes around the map. If you leech from super rich settlements, you can support yourself the whole game long with just a handful of cults. Also make sure that you set up some local recruitments whenever you land in any new place to make sure you can build up armies without having to rely on global recruitment too much. Always try to keep discoverability at no more than 50 and complete as many missions as you can for all those permanent bonuses for the faction. And that's everything there is to know about Tzeentch in 2025. Let me know any questions you have in the comments below and I'll do my best to help you out. Like, subscribe, and if you want more Warhammer 3 faction guides, then check out this one all about Kislev.